against. I mean, look at Joe. Joe is more powerful than CNN and MSNBC and Fox all put together. That gives me like immense inspiration.
Yeah.
Like he created the space for me to succeed. And I told him that when I met him. I was like, dude, like I listened to his podcast when I was like young. And I remember like when I got to meet him and all that, and I told him this on this pod, I was like, I didn't know millions were willing to listen to a guy talk about chimps for 3 straight hours, including me. I didn't know that I'd be one of those people.
Yeah, me too. I learned something about myself from a show, yeah.
And so by creating that space, I'd be like, wait, there's a hunger here. Like he showed us all the way. And none of us will ever again be as famous as Rogan because he was the first. And that's fine because he created the umbrella ecosystem for us all to thrive. That is where I see like a great amount of hope within that story.
Yeah, and the cool thing, he also supports that ecosystem. He's such a...
He's so generous.
One of the things he paved the way on for me is to show that you can just be honest, publicly honest.
Yes.
And not jealous of other people's success, but instead be supportive and all those kinds of things, just like loving towards others. He's been an inspiration. I mean, to the comics community, I think there are a bunch of, before that, I think there were all a bunch of competitive haters towards each other.
Yeah. And now he's like just injected love.
Yeah.
You know?
They're still like, many are still resistant, but they're like, they can't help it because he's such a huge voice. He like forces them to be like loving towards each other. And the same, one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast was to try to, I wanted to be like do what Joe Rogan did, but for the scientific community, like my little circle of scientific community of like, let's support each other.
Yeah. Well, like Avi Loeb, I would have no idea who he was if it wasn't for you. I mean, I assume you put him in touch with Joe. He went on Joe's show. I had him on my show. Like millions of people would have no idea who he was if it wasn't for you.
Just by the way, in terms of deep state and shadow government, Avi Loeb has to do with aliens. You better believe Joe.
Dude, the last thing I sent to him was the American Airlines audio. Did you see that? The pilots who were, oh my God, dude, this is amazing. So like, I'm like getting excited. This American Airlines flight crew was over New Mexico. This happened 5 or 6 days ago. Yeah. And the guy comes and he goes, hey, do you have any targets up here? A large cylindrical object just flew over me. Okay, so this happens.
Yes.
Then a guy or like a radio catcher records this and posts it online. American Airlines confirms that this is authentic audio. And they go, all further questions should be referred to the FBI. So then, okay, American Airlines just confirmed it's a legitimate transmission. FBI, then the FAA comes out and says, we were tracking no objects in the vicinity of this plane at the time of the transmission. So the only plausible explanation that online sleuths have been able to say is maybe he saw a Learjet, which was, using like open source data. FAA rules that out. So what was it? He saw a large cylindrical object while he was mid-flight. American Airlines. You can go online, listen to the audio yourself. This is a 100% no shit transmission confirmed by American Airlines of a commercial pilot over New Mexico seeing a quote unquote large cylindrical object in the air. Like I said, when we first started talking, I've never believed more in UFOs than aliens.
Yeah, this is like, awesome. Yeah, I just wish both American Airlines, FBI, and government would be more transparent. Like there would be voices. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the kind of transparency that you see, maybe not Joe Rogan. He's like overly transparent. He's just a comic, really. But just I don't know, like a podcast from the FBI. Just like being honest, like excited, confused. Yeah. I'm sure they're being overly cautious about the release information. I'm sure there's a lot of information that would inspire the public, that will inspire trust in institutions, that will not damage national security. Like, it seems to me obvious. And the reason they're not sharing it is because of this momentum of bureaucracy, of caution, and so on. But there's probably so much cool information that the government has.
The way I wouldn't say it confirmed it's real, but Trump didn't declassify it. Like, that if there was ever a president that actually wanted to get to the bottom of it, it was him.
Yeah.
I mean, He didn't declassify it, man. And people begged him to. I know for a fact, because I pushed to try and make this happen, that some people did speak to him about it. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So
he might be afraid.
That's what I mean, though. They were probably all telling him, they're like, sir, you can't do this, all this. Like, wow. And I get that. And there's this legislation written in COVID that, like, they have 6 months to release.
I mean, is that real? What is that? Is that a bunch of bullshit?
I think it's bullshit. There's so many different levels of classification that people need to understand. I mean, look, I read John Podesta. He was the chief of staff to Bill Clinton. He's a big UFO guy. He tried. Like, him and Clinton tried to get some of this information, and they could not get any of it. And we're talking about the president and the White House chief of staff at the time.
Well, there's a whole bureaucracy built, just like you were saying, with intent. You have to be like, that has to be your focus, because there's a whole bureaucracy built around secrecy probably for a good reason. So to get through to the information, there's a whole like paperwork process, all that kind of stuff. You can't just walk in and get unless, again, with intention, that becomes your thing. Like, let's revolutionize this thing. And then you get only so many things. It's sad that the bureaucracy has gotten so bulky. But I think the hopeful messages from earlier in our conversation, it seems like a single person can't fix it, but if you hire the right team, it feels like you can.
Can't fix everything. I don't want to give people unrealistic expectations. You can fix a lot, especially in crisis. You can remake America.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that is because it's already happened twice. FDR, or in modern history, FDR and JFK. FDR and JFK's assassination, LBJ. Two hyper competent men who understood government, who understood personnel, and coincidentally were friends. I love this. I don't think actually people understand this. FDR met Johnson 3 days after he won his election to Congress, special election. He was only 29 years old. And he left that meeting and called somebody and said, this young man is going to be president of the United States someday. Like, even then, like, what was within him to understand and to recognize that? And sometimes Johnson, as a young member of Congress, would come and have breakfast with FDR, like just two of the great political minds of the 20th century, just sitting there talking. Like, I would give anything to know what there was happening.